Before I make it seem obvious that I think Mike McCarthy is a good head coach, I think it's a good thing to note that I'm really not a huge fan of Mike McCarthy. I don't think that he's a good head coach at all. But when you look at what he has been tasked with as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for the last 4 seasons, I mean, really, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, if you just want to sit there and think about it, and really it's the last 5 seasons actually, you haven't done this much winning with one head coach since, I mean, Barry Switzer in the late 90s? And I understand that, 4 straight years of disappointment, basically. 3 years in the playoffs where you either lose in the wild card or lose before the NFC Championship, and this year where you go 7-10. And I understand that. But what I don't understand is, do you just not like winning football games? You go 3 straight seasons of being 12-5, and you have 2 seasons where you end up losing Dak Prescott for over half of a season, and you still manage to win 6 or 7 games. And you're a competitive team. You're not just some pushover. You're a competitive team. This team with the Dallas Cowboys was competitive all the way to the end of the season. And I think it's a sign of A, the players respect the coach, the players are listening to their coach, the players are taking after their head coach's personality, which, to Mike McCarthy's credit, he's a gritty head coach. He's a guy that wants to get the job done. And he was able to push that off onto his players pretty easily, actually. Even when guys went down. Even this year when they all had to hear about how they had no running game, when their defense, they had to hear about how their defense was terrible. They just kept on playing football. And this really just overshadows the real issue with the Dallas Cowboys, and that is their ownership group, mostly just Jerry Jones. And I think everybody knows that that's the issue, but nobody knows how to fix it. Nobody knows how to fix this because he's the owner. And that just makes it unfixable, because what are you going to do if you're the Cowboys? And, earlier I said, if you're a Cowboys fan, do you just not like winning? Well, I guess if you're Jerry Jones, do you just not like winning? No, you haven't won a Super Bowl since Mike McCarthy took over. Why is that any different than the last 10 coaches, 8 coaches that have been there? I guess that's not 8. It's really only 6. But you get my point. Why is Mike McCarthy any different than the guys before? Because they were disappointing in 2 seasons, and this year they lost Dak Prescott halfway through, and they didn't look good at all. I mean, newsflash. Since Mike McCarthy took over, one team has pretty much been in every Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's it's kind of hard to win a Super Bowl when one team is doing it every single year. And no, the Cowboys aren't putting themselves in a position to win a championship. But the Cowboys, what are they supposed to do when the guy who sets the table for them forgets to put out plates, forgets to put out forks and knives, forgets to put out napkins? This guy is forcing whoever's the head coach, whoever's the quarterback, to put lipstick on a pig and say, make a beautiful painting out of this mess that I've created. Jerry Jones is the one that hasn't drafted a running back since Ezekiel Elliott. Jerry Jones is the one that hasn't signed a running back since I don't even know who. It's obvious they missed out on Derrick Henry. They missed out on Joe Mixon, or they missed out on Josh Jacobs, or even, Saquon Barkley, I guess. But I don't know if any of those guys could have came into the situation that Jerry Jones has created. Jerry Jones, we always know where he is. We don't always know where all other 31 owners in this league are at any given moment. We always know what Jerry Jones is saying, what he's doing, and where he's at. We don't need to know that about the owner. We don't. We really don't. And it's really unfortunate because the Cowboys had a pretty talented team going into this year in their skill group positions, at least. No, they didn't have a running back, and they did lose Dak Prescott halfway through the year. But again, this team was competitive. Their players were competitive. Their coaching staff was competitive. And now Jerry Jones has made a complete laughingstock out of this franchise. And I just don't know where it goes up from here. You know, the most respectable head coaching candidate in terms of getting players to be gritty and getting them to play hard, the most respectable candidate out there was Mike Vrabel. Who's remaining? You're going to hire Dion? That's a terrible decision. You're going to hire who? You're somehow going to lure Ben Johnson down there when he probably knows that that's so much of a dumpster fire. He would way rather just stay playing, being the offensive play caller, than being the head coach of that team. Like, who are you going to get to convince, like, they should be the head coach of this team? And who's Jerry Jones going to settle for? Because at the end of the day, like I said, I think Dion has a better job at Colorado. I think Ben Johnson has a better job at Detroit. I think anybody that you want to say has a better job where they're at. And this job for the Dallas Cowboys is unreasonable. It's unlikable. And you're never going to get the benefit of the doubt from your owner. And you're never going to get a full team from a guy who just seems like he doesn't get it anymore.